The story begins when the monsters suddenly appear all over the world, and the people are running to save their lives. Along with the monsters' sudden appearance, the world is going toward destruction because a big tower appears there from nowhere. There is a live broadcast from above the Chinho neighborhood, where a structure has appeared but hasn't displayed any detectable signs of activity. Government and military authorities are operating with the highest degree of caution due to the fact that this structure could be a new and highly dangerous type of monster. People are anxious about the continued appearance of supernatural anomalies, and this was humanity's first encounter with the tutorial tower. After that, the tower periodically selected people from around the world and then forcefully brought them to its location. They were then subjected to a merciless ordeal regardless of age or physical condition. Only 20% of those selected survived the tower, gained special abilities, and became hunters, humankind's last hope. 12 years after the tutorial tower was cleared for the first time, the monsters again appear there, but now they have hunters to save them. People are so fond of them, and they idolize them, while hunters are able to enjoy fame and fortune like celebrities. However, the state wasn't going to ignore the incredible power of the hunters, and a new age had arrived, one where each country was judged in part by the number of hunters it possessed. As a result, to raise their value and protect themselves from the state, the hunters formed an association and the guild and started group operations. There is a live broadcast held at a TV show where they have invited the hunters, and the host states they will dive deep into all things hunter related and share their findings with them. They have invited the top guild leaders in South Korea, and one of them is the leader of the guild, Seokwan Han. The second one is the leader of the Arang Guild, Soyeon Lee, and the third is the leader of the Seoul Guild, Sehyun Kim. The show Meet the Hunters was designed to capitalize on the public's interest in hunters. Last week, the show achieved a nationwide viewer rating of 35.7%, cementing its status as a hit show, and people from different platforms watch it keenly. The host asks them about the last question, number 1 in the top 10 most requested questions online. There are rumors of an advanced player living in the tutorial tower in Korea, and the host asks them who that advanced player is. She also came across some rumors on the internet about the advanced player, and asked them if the guild leaders knew about this person. One of them laughs and says, seeing as there is still talk of the advanced players going around, it seems he is still alive and kicking. But the other replies there is anyone there who hasn't heard of him. As one of the first generation hunters, he was with them when they were taken to the tutorial tower. But they still can't believe that the first generation hunter from 12 years ago is still in the tower. One of the hunters exclaims it might be due to something like a curse that after clearing the tower, instead of being released like the other hunters, he was sent back to the first floor of the tower. So, the guild leaders assume that the advanced player is a first generation who has been unable to escape and has repeatedly cleared the tower for the past 12 years. A tutorial tower is a place where hunters train their fundamental abilities to the highest limit, excluding their magic abilities. If someone were to clear the tower for 12 years, then there is a chance that he has become a mighty hunter. One of the guild members claims that he has clearly seen him clearing the tower from the first floor to the 100th floor in a single day. This means that besides his magic ability, his essential abilities must have surpassed those of being an average hunter long ago. How will they face him if they consider that he has repeatedly cleared the tower? On the other side, a hunter faces a monster on the 100th floor, Balrog, and thinks if other hunters could get out of the tower, they would immediately be placed somewhere between a grade and S grade. At the same time, the general asks about the advanced player mentioned at the end of Meet the Hunters this week, and according to them, their guild leader, Seoyeon Lee, is at least on a rank or S rank. Then, how can someone fresh out of the tower be the same? A B-grade hunter states that he bumped into the advanced player and saw him clear the dungeon, and it was like watching a legend in action. 3 werewolves appeared on floor 72, but he went wild and took them down solo. He is someone who escaped the dungeon a year ago, and he is an advanced player. With a single kick on floor 1, he would blast all the way through floor 10. He is so powerful that he smashes the monster in just one blow, and he is the one the world is looking for while enjoying himself in the tower and calling himself better than perfect. He has defeated another powerful monster and thinks he is running out of new things to try. Over the past 12 years, it has taken trainee hunters less and less time to clear the tutorial tower, and all the tutorial towers across the world have the same content. There has never been a report of anything changing. So whenever a new group of hunters cleared the tower, the data on conquest methods accumulated, and the information was shared worldwide. Whenever a group set a world record, the news spread in the newspaper and many counters made this information available to the public only to increase the survival rate of their people. No matter how detailed the information or how far it was spread, only a few hunters managed to conquer the tutorial tower. Moreover, the seasoned trainee hunters who managed to fight through all 99 floors must still face the final test. Dalrog, the boss of the tutorial tower. He is so powerful that 70 out of 95 don't survive, and this terrifying entity has taken the lives of more than half of all trainee hunters. At that moment, a hunter was about to get attacked by a monster when the advanced player appeared and beheaded him with just one blow. This is his 1349th clear, so he starts clearing the tower with the 1340th time. After a while, he lies on the ground and sees his status window showing all his stats as a plus, and at this point, his stats don't gain anything from clearing. 12 years ago, when the hunters cleared the tutorial tower, they were happy they could finally go home. They thanked Hyonu because if it weren't for him, there's no way they would have made it out alive. They ask him if he won't forget them, and he is also happy and exclaims that they have gotten to know each other too well for that. But when he tried to come outside the tutorial tower, clearance started again, and everyone disappeared from sight. He finds himself again on the first floor, and Hyonu clears the tower again with the next group of people. But a status window shows the tower has cursed him. He also noticed the additional information on the screen and was furious and despaired over the situation. Before trying out different ways to break free from the curse, he started to clear the tower from start to finish by himself, and he was surprised that his methods worked. He marked on the wall every time he cleared the tower, trained until his physical abilities were at their absolute limits, and so forth. He thought he could now break stone pillars and the like very quickly, but the tower appeared again with the uncleared tutorial. Nothing worked. He tried, and for 5 years, he tried everything possible, but he still could not find a way to escape the tower. So, instead of desperately looking for a way to break free from his curse, he accepted his fate and even tried to enjoy his situation. On his 433rd clear of the tower, Hyonu played the role of an NPC guide for beginners and helped them to clear the tower. On his 512th go, he played the role of a military instructor in charge of recruits. He stated that his role was to identify and completely eradicate all his weaknesses so that he could make them all into survivors. However, the role-playing and interactions didn't last very long, but he couldn't bear hearing about the outside world from those leaving the tower. After that, he had nothing else to do but clear the tower repeatedly, and 12 years passed with him clearing the tower over and over again. He thinks that no matter how often he looks at this status window, nothing changes. Suddenly, the status window shows that an endless loop revolved, and after he clears the next tower, he may pass through. He is so excited that he can finally get out of the tower and go home. The following day, at the Meet the Hunters show, it is said that the minimum time required to conquer the tutorial tower is around 10 months, and the host asks the guild leader if the 18th generation hunters can break the record. Seoyin replies that the number of hunters is different each time, and so much depends on how well they work together. Seoyok, the leader of the Soul Guild, exclaims it is also essential to determine their effectiveness based on individual ability. The greatest challenge comes after reaching floor 51, where a high-level boss appears every 10 levels. From that point onward, there is no reliance on luck because the monsters there are so giant, but Hyonu defeats the monsters like a piece of cake. But for the first time, he thinks this is taking too long because he is desperate to go outside. However, he reaches the 80th floor in no time and clears all the floors individually. On the 99th floor, he faces the giant monster and shouts at him that he is going home after so long. On the other side, the hunters observed that the tower was opening up at the entry regulation zone at the tutorial tower in Gangdong District, Chinho neighborhood. One of them calls someone and asks them to check the list of survivors, but only one survivor, Hyonu Kim, is getting out of the tower. He is so excited to get out of the tower and see the sunlight after 12 years, and a man approaches him, congratulating him on making it out of the tutorial tower. He is shocked and asks him if he is really out of the tower, and the man assures him and asks him about his name. But Hyonu doesn't listen to him and screams happily that he is finally free, while the man is unable to see his name in the list of the people who went inside. After a while, he finds his name in the first generation tutorial list and is shocked to know that he is the advanced player, Hyonu Kim. After 12 years, the first summoner, Hyonu Kim's exit from the tutorial tower was officially confirmed. 1 week later, the host of the Meet the Hunt show's host pays her greetings to the audience, and they are at the Korean Tutorial Center, where the 18th generation hunters will undergo their first grade assessment. This time, it's extra special. With the world record time for completion smashed by 2 weeks, the world is paying great attention. Another hot topic is that the famous advanced player is also with them. At the tutorial center VIP waiting room, Soyeon enters and asks the other two about Hyunwoo if he really returned. Seok replies that there is only one Hyunwoo Kim who entered the tower in 1006. If they were to all meet up, he would be the only one unchanged since then, and inside the tower, he didn't feel the need to eat or sleep, and someone's body stopped growing or aging. They can't wait to see what a beast he has become. There is an announcement for the new hunters that they plan to start the grade assessment in 5 minutes. In the grade assessment exam waiting room, they were instructed to take the essential equipment provided and calmly ready themselves for the exam. Meanwhile, Hyunwoo is eating chips and is sad to see it has finished. All the cadets are surprised to see him, and he asks them about the equipment, and they asked him if he didn't get the equipment given in the morning. They warn him that if he messes up on the grade assessment, it's a struggle from there on out, and Hyunwoo thinks if he fell asleep while they were handling them. They hear an announcement from the tutorial center asking them to attend the examination site. Soon, they reach the tutorial center, grade assessment labyrinth, where they welcomed all junior hunters. A man introduces himself as David, a grade hunter in charge of overseeing the exam today, and asks the students to begin with the grade assessment test. He exclaims that they are probably already aware of this, but the whole world is watching them as he speaks. Compared to the tutorial tower, this is a simple entrance exam. They want them to take all the experience and skills acquired in the tutorial tower and show them what they can do while Hyunwoo is bored with these instructions. David introduces them to the first exam and exclaims that the challenges they will face as hunters come in various forms, one of which is the labyrinth, which is filled with various obstacles. David tells them that the exam is simple, but they have to use all the skills available to them. He recommended they use all of their abilities to reach the exit on the other side of the labyrinth, which would start in 30 seconds. All the cadets took their positions and rushed into the labyrinth when the alarm beeped. David is pleased to see that the new group of hunters is disciplined and is excited to see how this exam unfolds. Seeing them reminds him of when he first took the exam, and he thinks it is essential for hunters never to forget how they started. Meanwhile, Hyunwoo approaches him, calls him from behind, and asks him if it matters how he reaches the exit. David is surprised to see his casual behavior and wonders if he really is one of the trainees, even though he doesn't have any equipment. He wonders if he is taking this exam seriously since his attitude is non-serious. However, he replies to him, saying he can adopt any method to reach the exit, and angrily asks him if this exam is a joke to him. Hyunwoo smirked and asked him to save his speech for the hard-working guys over there, and David didn't like his arrogance. Hyunwoo asks him to make a bet with him that he can reach the exit in 20 seconds and asks him to put 1 million won on the bet. David glares him unpleasantly, puts 10 million won on the bet, and says this is equivalent to his daily pay plus the overtime for the exam. Hyunwoo agrees and runs away, saying he will not accept any excuses later. At the gate of Labyrinth, he thinks that David's salary is huge. The state employs hunters, so he thought they were just civil servants, but he is surprised to see his pay and bonus, which is enormous. He is pressing the wall, and everyone watching him wonders what he is trying to do. Suddenly, he gathered all of his force and punched the gate, and at the other moment, he reached the other side of the labyrinth. Everyone is shocked to see that he busts through the labyrinth and thinks it is just impossible, while the guild leaders think he was always that reckless. However, he is lost in his 10 million won, which he earned through a bet, and thinks earning money is so easy. But soon, he realizes that they will make him pay for the damage he created. 20 hours before the Hunter grade assessment, at the Live Hunter magazine, a man asks his employee if she is not excited about this month's sales figures because of the famed advanced player. But finding information on him is proving to be difficult for them, and the girl asks him if there are any other newcomers worth keeping an eye on other than the advanced player. He tells her about a newcomer with a martial arts background who can be a solid bet among trainee hunters, and they think he can be a backup in case the advanced players are not a big deal. His name is Kang Hyun Lee, and the next day, he enters the labyrinth with a determination that he will become today's star. He has talent, skill, and luck on his side, and he can face all the monsters that come his way quickly. He is not afraid to give it everything he has since he is a kendo master ranked at 4 Dan and is also a frequent winner of international kendo competitions. He is the strongest hunter in this group, and he grabs everyone's attention from the start and succeeds every step of the way. At least this was the plan until Hyunwoo showed up, and Kang saw him getting out of the tower screaming happily, and wondered if he really was a person. From that point, he steals Kang's spotlight and goes back to the present, the day of the grade assessment exam. There is an announcement that due to safety issues, the labyrinth segment of the exam has been temporarily suspended, and the order for all the participants is to return to the waiting room and await instruction regarding the following schedule. Everyone was shocked at what had just happened, and it was so fast that the camera could not capture this. The only clean shots they have are the ones of Kang because they never think anyone would care for some guy in slippers. Everyone thinks it is the birth of a new star. After some time, Hyunwoo is snoring in the waiting room while the other soldiers are whispering and talking about him for causing the explosion earlier. The press is all talking about the advanced player while Kang thinks it is not over yet, and he still has the chance to take the spotlight. Meanwhile, they heard an announcement from the Grade Assessment Council declaring that the sequence of events for today's grade exam had been altered and the exam would restart in 15 minutes. Meanwhile, Kang thinks he doesn't care if he is an advanced player and is determined that he won't lose to him. Later, the test starts and he faces the monster wave. Kang uses the virtual training monsters created by combining spirit stones from monsters and the latest technology to defeat them. The goal is to evaluate the junior hunters by how many monsters they can defeat in a set time. Kang is trying his best and suddenly uses the lightning technique to attack the monsters. At the same time, everyone is shocked that the hunter has only just escaped the tower, but he already has magical abilities. They consider themselves in the presence of a genius who defeats the monsters with just one blow of his sword. The total number of monsters he killed in the segment is 78, the highest score an examinee has achieved to date. Everyone is praising him for his incredible performance, and they think he is worthy of his reputation since he is outstanding in combat and already possesses magic skills. According to them, he definitely would have finished top if it hadn't been for the advanced player. Now, it's Hyunwoo's turn, which is still yawning and showing non-serious behavior. People are excited to see him and wonder what he will show now, while the guild leaders also want to see how his fighting style has evolved. The time limit is 120 seconds, and he hears an announcement to start the exam. As soon as he enters the area, a large number of monsters appear there and surround him from all sides, while he just has 120 seconds to take them down. The exam will begin in 10 seconds, and everyone is counting down to see his performance in this segment. They are surprised to see his calmness, who has put his hands in his pockets and is watching them quietly. As soon as there is an announcement to start the exam, a monster comes forward to attack him, but Hyunwoo jumps from his place and punches him with his full might. The reaction was so fast that the people could not see his movements, and they asked each other to catch this on camera. The monsters now come forward to attack him together, but he smashes them all in one blow, and doesn't give them a chance to land an attack on him. When the time remaining is 1 minute and 55 seconds, everyone is shocked to see that the hunter disappeared from there. It looks like the monster's head is blowing up by itself, and they wonder if he can use magic, but they have never seen such a magic spell. Meanwhile, the guild leaders, who are watching him, exclaim he is not using magic, but he is so fast that they are unable to see his movements. In actuality, he just runs up to a monster, punches it, and then finds a new target to repeat the same action. He is not using any high-level skills but is moving quickly, and it looks like the monsters are blowing up by themselves. One of them asks if these movements are even possible without enchantments, and they are now sure, after seeing him in person, that he has become an absolute monster. When the exam finished, it was announced that Hyunwoo Kim had killed a total of 248 monsters. After that, the live footage of the advanced players was released, and there were multiple comments on social media related to his incredible fighting. At the same time, Kang is also watching this on his mobile phone, and he gets so angry after seeing this and breaks his mobile phone angrily. He then starts shouting in the washroom and hitting the wall helplessly because he trained so hard for this day. He pushed himself to hunt even when the others were lazing around and even stole people's skills, knowing that he would be screamed at and hated, but he used all the cheap tricks and struggled with all his might to increase his rank. He is shouting loudly, screaming how this can be a balance with some advanced player. On the other side, a girl shows Hyunwoo a list of guilds wanting to meet him. She works as the chief of the Korean Hunters Association Information Division. Her name is Alice, and she congratulates him on his return after 12 years. She reveals that many things have changed since the tower first appeared, and the monsters originating from labyrinths and dungeons are dangerous. However, the Hunters Guilds are always interested in recruiting excellent hunters to overcome the dangers as a team and receive significant rewards. When she is discussing these things, Hyunwoo is thinking about food since he is starving, and Alice calls him to ask what he is thinking. He asks her why she is explaining this to him, and she replies that she has come there for some personal reasons. She wanted to meet the famous advanced player who excited everyone, share something with him, and show him a revised edition of Ares Guild contracts regarding a member's rights and duties. Once both parties have signed the membership agreement, the member shall receive the following amount. While he is shocked to see the amount, Alice asks him how he feels about signing a contract worth 10 billion won while he is looking at her, shocked. Hyunwoo surprisingly asks her when the value of their currency fell so much and if they went through hyperinflation like Zimbabwe. She replies that it was pretty chaotic because of the monsters, but fortunately, there was no financial crisis like that. However, the price of land did see a significant increase. Moreover, the prices where he used to live have also changed from 300 million won to 1.3 billion won. She exclaims that he has nothing to worry about even though the cost of everything has increased, and the 10 billion won is just a signing bonus. Moreover, the Ares Guild will pay 2 times the current signing bonus if he renews with them at the end of this contract. He will also share the spoils he acquired in the labyrinth with the guild. She assures him that he will find that the distribution ratio is in his favor, and Hyunwoo asks him if the guild contracts are also a part of her role as information officer. Alice replies that the recruiter from the Ares Guild insisted, so she shared this with him. Hyunwoo knows it is illegal to make contract offers to people still housed by the association. She asks him to think about this and then make a decision, and he states that he didn't want to sign up with a guild from the start because none of the guilds interest him. He exclaims that he doesn't want to be tied down to a guild and their activities, and she shockingly leaves his room. Later, he lies on his bed in the room and thinks the world is all about give and take, and they wouldn't just offer him 10 billion won for no reason. He is sure that once he gets that signing box, there will definitely be a ton of bothersome work coming his way. He eats a lot of snacks and thinks this kind of stuff makes his skin crawl, and he will now live a relaxing and comfortable life, doing what he wants to do. A little earlier, Alice asked him if he hadn't any interest in being a hunter altogether, and he replied that he wanted to become a hunter who worked alone. Alice thinks he wants to become the mercenary hunter since they have already gained experience from working in guilds, but an inexperienced hunter can't venture alone into a labyrinth. Alice considers him rude and says the reality isn't as simple as he thinks. She asks him to reach her through the contact information on her business card if he changes his mind. At present, he thinks it was all just a waste of time, and if he had known about mercenary hunters beforehand, he would have used that time to sleep instead of wasting his time with the pointless exam. The things annoy him so much that he can't sleep, and he thinks of reading the list to get rid of boredom. The list of guilds who want to meet with Hunter Hyunwoo Kim, and he thinks they are all wasting their time. But he is surprised to see the names of his friends in it. 5 days later, on the last day of the protection period for the new hunters, he goes to a Japanese restaurant in the Mokdong neighborhood to see his friends. He is still shocked to see them because they have all changed a lot. He asks them if they are really Seokwon, Seoyeon, and Sehyun, and they get annoyed because he is asking the same question for the 30th time. He is sure that Seok was his age back then, but now he looks like a middle-aged man. Also, the high school wimp Sehyun has become a standard, good-looking guy. Moreover, Yeon used to be a middle schooler, but now she is an entirely different person. He again asks him if she is Sehyun, the guy who is cowardly behind his back all the way to the 50th floor, and he angrily asks him how he still remembers that. He also continues saying he peed his pants when he saw the banshee on the 14th floor. Sehyun gets angry about this, emits a lot of mana, and asks him to continue at his own risk because he will end up in the hospital. Hyunwoo changes the topic and says it is perfect to see them, and the sushi is so good and wonders how he survived without this stuff for 12 years. Yeon asks him if he remembers when they defeated the merman on the 70th floor. He goes on and on about how he missed eating sushi. He remembers when he took Seokwon's knife and went in for some merman tail sashimi, and went berserk, saying he would carve it up nice and neat with his knife. Seokwon exclaims whenever urban legends about him leaked outside the tower, they were unsure if it was because they knew him from before. Seoyeon also says they were able to find some reassurance in the fact that he was still alive and well. Hyunwoo asks them what kind of urban legends were famous about them, and Seoyeon tells him that he has become a celebrity, and what he did inside the tower was all mentioned on TV. He is shocked that his role-playing was mentioned on TV, and is asked which role is explicitly mentioned. They reply there are too many to count. One includes when he cleared the dungeon in the nude or when he cleared the dungeon pretending to be Gollum. The most infamous story is the one where he defeated bosses while doing a strange dance, and there are stories about him smashing his way through 10 floors with one kick. He admires himself and says he did do all the things, and they surprisingly ask him what he was up to in the tower. Hyunwoo replies that he danced in there and just got so fed up and jumped really high. And that's where he ended tower because he just wanted to see if he could dance and defeat the monster at once. He is smiling while eating weirdly, while they are staring at him and wondering if he really is a human. He also exclaims if he tried it, he might be able to escape and bust through 10 flat up. Seokhyun says watching him at the assessment, he realizes how powerful he has become, and after hearing the stories directly from him, he leaves no doubt. Hyunwoo gets severe and asks them to get stuck in there, and they end up trying everything. Suddenly, he remembers something and says his student must be out as well, but he can't remember which generation they are from, and they are shocked to hear about his student. It was when he was between floors 50 and 60, and he saw someone get behind inside the tower, and he felt the presence of a lost soul. Suddenly, he appeared there in the form of a monster and asked the kid if he wanted to survive. He decided to help and guide him and exclaimed that he was fixated on the idea of martial arts, so he took him under his wings and trained him. Seokhyun can't understand martial arts, and Hyunwoo replies it is an art where a guy is trapped somewhere but becomes enlightened and escapes. This is the end of stuff they see in comics and novels. He thought if he gained enlightenment, he could escape as well, so he gave it a shot. He trained him so hard there and taught him all kinds of martial arts and fighting skills. He taught him the way to break the pillar using his fist and asked him to focus his mind on his lower abdomen to bring out his inner energy. However, the only thing he knew how to use was pure brute strength, so it was all completely for the show, and he was so brutal on him that now he felt bad for him. Moreover, he was the wrong person back then, making it even worse, and he is now glad that he wore a mask and didn't want to run into him out there. He asks them how things have been in the outside world for the past 12 years, and they tell him multiple things that happened in the previous years. Later, when he lies on his bed in the room, a status window appears there, and it no longer has the message, and the tutorial limit has been reached next to his stats. Moreover, it no longer reads his age as 36 and says 24, which means he really lost 12 years of his life. From nothing, he decided to earn a decent amount of money and live life the way he wanted to the day he died. However, he wonders why the loop is still floating about, and when he touches it, it presses down, and another status window appears there, saying the endless loop has been removed. To move on to the next level, he has to defeat 3 dungeons to satisfy the minimum requirements. There are also the names of the dungeon he has to defeat, and he is shocked at what is happening there. Meanwhile, someone knocks at the door and asks him if he is inside the room. The man is the management staff and informs him that some people have come there to meet with him, and they look like recruiters from the Ares Guild. He refuses him by saying he is not interested, but the guards insist and say they asked him to bring him out there even if he refuses. He apologizes to him for his rudeness and asks him to cooperate with him since they are the Ares Guild, and Hyunwoo feels they will not stop until he makes it completely clear to them. He gets out of the room and asks him where he needs to go, and he replies that they are waiting in the lounge on floor 1. After some time, he reached there, and the man present there asked him if he was Hunter Kim, and he rudely replied that he had to make crystal clear that he had no intention of joining a guild. He introduces himself as Byung Kang, the Ares Guild Human Resources Manager, and he asks him if he is sure that he can make progress as a hunter. He again asks him to join the Ares Guild and become their member, and there will be no more needless suffering once he joins the guild. Hyunwoo asks him if he crawled all the way there just to threaten him, while his guard gets angry about this and asks how he dares to speak to him like that. Mr. Byung calms him down and advises Hyunwoo not to do anything foolish because he doesn't know the Ares Guild yet. But he interrupts him and says he already knows that they are a bunch of scum that gobbled up more than half of all the dungeons in Korea. Earlier, when he was with his old friends, they told him about the dungeon admission ticket, which is more like an amusement park ticket, and Seokhyun revealed that the Ares Guild has a monopoly on over 66% of all their country's dungeons. Among them are rank dungeons, perfect for farming, and beginner-oriented D-rank dungeons. And Seiyin says it's foreign capital, and they have money to throw around. It is revealed that for a beginner to gain experience and a professional to earn a living, they must either purchase the expensive admission ticket or be an Ares member. In essence, they are forcing everyone to choose from those 2 options. At present, one of their strong men comes forward and punches the sofa in front of him with force, and Byung exclaims that they have their men at the association, too. He again threatens him, saying he must think carefully about this proposal. Otherwise, his condition will be like a sofa in front of him. He doesn't think Hyunwoo fully understands the situation, and the man lifts the sofa and throws it at a distance to threaten him more. Byung says this man's overall stats are powerful enough to make him a great hunter, and he will not stand a chance against him. Hyunwoo smiles and says they are just wasting his time and his peaceful sleep while they are shocked and angry at his reaction. He then lifts his slipper and asks the strong man to come to him so that he can knock some sense into him. The man rushes toward him furiously, saying he will kill him on the spot, but Hyunwoo smacks his slipper on his face with so much force that he falls to the ground at a distance. Byung is shocked to see his condition because he has fallen after breaking the wall. Hyunwoo stands there calmly and warns them not to use these words again. Earlier, when the strong man heard about him on the TV about his success in the exam, Byung praised them, saying he was better than he had expected. However, they thought he was just a big fish in a small dungeon, and he might think at that time that he was the strongest. They thought he would never get a chance against a real opponent, and the might and power he gained in the Aries Guild was far beyond Hyunwoo, and it would bring him to his knees. This is what he thought at that time, but now they are shocked to see that their plan has gone completely wrong. They are shocked at how he can be so powerful when he even can't use magic. Hyung then comes forward and asks him if he knows what he hates the most and exclaims he hates those who try to threaten him. While Byung is scared of him and moves backward to save him, Hyunwoo stares at him with killing intentions and warns them never to see him again. He then slaps his face, too, to teach him a practical lesson. After that, he meets Seokhyun and tells him about what happened earlier, and how they started fighting with him. He tells him that he went too far because those people at Aries are relentless. Hyunwoo asks him what he meant by relentless, and he replies nobody messes with them because they tend to hold grudges and send out threats to prevent him from joining other guilds. Moreover, they also can silence him inside the labyrinths. Silence means they will kill him, and in the labyrinth, there aren't any witnesses against them, and he tosses strawberries in his mouth, saying they are Vefir. Soyeok says what he did was also very brutal, and now they will definitely do something against him. With this, he asks him to join his guild. Hyunwoo refuses by saying he will not join any guild because he wants to become a mercenary hunter, and will put that on hold for now. Soyeok asks him what trouble he will cause now, and he tells him that he has some stuff he needs to take care of. He asks him if he has heard about Adoron's laboratory since he has been curious about this for the past 12 years. Moreover, it was also one of the 3 dungeons the status window asked him to clear, and he is also curious about why he was the only one who couldn't escape the tower. His questions are full of rage and resentment, and he also wants to know about the person who made the tower and will ask him why he locked him up for 12 years. Once he figures out the tower's secrets and finds those who are responsible, then he will think about something later. Soyeok asks him why he asks about that place all of a sudden, and he asks him if he knows that place. Soyeok reveals that Adoron's laboratory is a place for either a C or C- rack dungeon based in Uijeongbu. He heard that it was a good place for new hunters to grow stronger. He again asks him why he wants to go there, and Hyunwoo replies he has got some business there, but Soyeok tells him that he will not be allowed in there. That dungeon is also under the influence of the Aries Guild, and they are abusing their exclusive rights to the dungeons. Hyunwoo is shocked to hear this and asks what about the government and if there are no laws to prevent monopolies. Soyeok states that the government and the politicians have no time for hunters, and they have no voting power. Only a tiny number of people pass the tutorial tower and go on to become hunters, and Hyunwoo says they are not afraid of killing people because this is a murder. Soyeok tells him that the dungeons are so dangerous that the police aren't able to investigate them, and they mark those deaths as accidental. On the surface level, Aries is the leader of a rising industry that contributes a healthy amount of taxes, and any situation involving hunters is too delicate for outside powers to interfere. Hyunwoo gets up and says he will just sneak in then, and he informs him that the people of the Aries Guild are guarding that place 24/7. Hyunwoo replies he needs to figure out another way, and will face them head on, which leaves him shocked. Soyeok says if he does this, he will make himself an enemy of Aries for good, but Hyunwoo thinks something and says it is a bit too late to worry about that now. It is stated that the Aries Guild, the mighty ruler, is more persistent than expected, and as a result, the Aries Guild's expansion into China will take longer. The guild's manager asks his employees how long they expect, and he replies that they need at least 5 months. He asks them about the movement in Russia and Japan, and he tells him that Russia will take 8 months and Japan will take 7 months. Seonu Hyuk is an S-grade hunter and manager of the Korean branch of the Aries Guild, and he states that time doesn't matter since the priority is always to stay one step ahead of the pack. He gives an example. When farming monsters kill, they don't need to be faster than the dungeon boss, they just have to be faster than the guy next to them. At last, he instructs them to keep monitoring what happens, and after the meeting, his employee gives him the analysis of Hyunwoo Kim's projected stat level. They used the footage of Hyunwoo's movements in the tutorial zone and presented a graph analyzing his strength, speed, and health. They have produced an estimate of his level using a trial analytical device. Seonu is surprised to see his stats and asks them if the device works correctly. He replied that he had his doubts as well, but according to the analysis department, the margin of error should only be a difference of 1 grade at most. His name is Byung-yu, and he is the head of human resources for the Korean branch of Aries. Seonu asks him if he tried to recruit him. He tries to tell him about the fight between Hyunwoo and Mr. Kang, but he interrupts him, saying he failed to recruit him. He asks him to forget it because they are better off without him and asks Byung not to play dumb with him. They know that recruiting a guy like him would be a huge benefit to the guild, and with his ability, he would make incredible progress, speeding through the labyrinths and dungeons and netting them some enormous profits. However, he might not be satisfied with that and come after his position, and he calls such people poison apples, which means it might look delicious, but one bite and they are in big trouble. He orders Byung to forget about recruitment and teach Hyunwoo some crucial lessons, and he will let those in the management division. Hyunwoo gets out of the office when another employee rushes toward him and informs him they have a big problem at Adoran's laboratory. On the other side, at Chinbo Mountain, Ui Jongbu, a girl, approaches the dungeon and requests the guard to let her in just once. They refuse her, saying she needs to hand over a dungeon admission ticket, but she requests them again, saying there aren't any other places to hunt, and they advise her to go to a labyrinth. Those have low-level monsters and, more importantly, are free. The guard makes her fun, saying she doesn't have any money and no skills but wants to take the easy route. But they will not let her in because they work on rules. However, he changes his mind and asks her to give him his number, and he will let her in. Meanwhile, Hyunwoo reaches there, and they are shocked to see a stranger. The guard shouts at him, saying there is no bathroom, so he should go from there. Hyunwoo replies he needs to do his business in the dungeon, and they shout at him, saying this is not a playground but an actual dungeon with many monsters inside. Hyunwoo comes forward and says this is why he has come there. He has some business to take care of in the dungeon. The guard is surprised by his reaction and asks him to watch himself since he is on thin ice. The guard also asks him about who he is. Suddenly, Hyunwoo bends down and picks up his slipper, saying he has listened to them enough. He exclaims that he tried to be nice to them, but they don't seem to understand while watching him. Surprisingly, he then smiles and calls one of them nicely to him, and he angrily comes forward, saying he has crossed his line. But when he comes near him, Hyunwoo kicks him with all his might and pushes him back, while his companion is shocked to see what just happened to his friend. The man falls to the ground at a distance, and even the iron rods behind them bend due to the pressure. Meanwhile, Hyunwoo appears behind the other one, who is already scared of him, and says he should have held back a little. He calls him and assures him that he will not touch him if he gives him his shoes. The boy doesn't understand what he is talking about, but he threatens to give up his shoes unless he wants to end up like his friend. The boy gives him shoes, and Hyunwoo really likes them. He says they look like totally heavy hunks of iron, but they feel weightless. The boy is crying over his shoes because it cost him 5 million won for the weight reduction spell. He then throws his slippers toward him, saying he is not a bad guy, and asks him to wear them to cover his bare feet. He then quietly enters the dungeon, and the girl already presented is surprised to see all this and exclaims she is also leaving. On the other hand, at the Seoul Guild headquarters, located in the Seongni neighborhoods in Seoul, the news of Hyunwoo entering the dungeon reaches there. Seoyeok states that he didn't let him go, but he went by himself. Seoyeon shouts at him, asking why he let him go, while he asks her to stop shouting because his ears are going to fall off. She refuses by saying she can't stay calm, and Seoyeok asks her if he is his boyfriend or something. She shouts at him and asks him to focus on the issue right now. Seoyeok told her he tried to warn him, but he asked him not to worry and ran out. He asks her if he looks like someone who can be stopped, and she becomes silent on this because she also knows about his nature. She then asks him if Hyunwoo and Aries Guild hate each other's guts now, and he doesn't even know the exact details either. Usually, he is not the type to cause trouble if he is left alone. But if anyone were to cross him, all offended parties would see the true colors of his twisted personality. They know why his personality ended up like that, but they both think they don't need to worry about him because he is strong enough to care for himself. Seoyeok says what Hyunwoo said is true, that they don't need to worry about him, and she asks him what he is talking about. He reveals that after they talked about the Aries Guild the previous day, they talked about some other things. He gets to hear about his stat level, and he tells her everything they talked about yesterday, and she shockingly asks him if this is all true. Conversely, Adoran, the boss of the C-rank dungeon Adoran Laboratory, asks about his test subjects. He exclaims that he can't continue his work like this and needs more samples and test subjects. Some people are watching him quietly, And finally, they have found the boss of the dungeon, and one of them exclaims the rumors are true, and it looks like Ares really doesn't bother with the Doron because he is not worth the drops. The other one asks what they should do now and if they should claim him for themselves, and they can't give up because they used the last of their funds to get there. The girl asks them if it is possible for them to do this with their abilities. When fighting bosses, they usually form a guild party. One of them reveals he did some research before coming there and found out that a Doron has high defense, but due to his low offense, he can be defeated by wearing his own overtime. They think this plan may work, and they get ready to attack the boss, and they have to defeat boss mobs to attain higher grades. Suddenly, they see Hyunwoo roaming around and wonder who that boy is and what he is doing there, and he doesn't even look like a hunter. Meanwhile, the dungeon boss watches him and is happy that he has found another test subject. He wonders what he should experiment on him. He then exclaims that he will let him decide. Whatever he chooses, he will thoroughly examine it. First, we will learn about what happened when Hyunwoo went through as a child when he was in the Boram children's home. A man asked him not to get in trouble and try not to show that he doesn't have parents. He also advised him to respect his teachers and keep his mouth shut unless spoken to. After Hyunwoo lost his parents in a car crash, his cousin sent him to a children's home and stole his inheritance. Maybe this was why he lost faith in humanity. But even though he was usually fine if someone tried to control or pressure him, he didn't hold back and unleashed his twisted grudge on them. At present, the dungeon boss is ready to experiment on him and wants to pierce his eyes, heart, and spine. He then asks him to stop laughing because this irritates him, and the boss asks what he should stop. With this, Hyunwoo lifts his leg in the air and kicks him with his might, while the three people watching them are shocked to see his action. He then calls the boss and asks him to stop all that screeching he is doing, and they are shocked that he killed him in just one blow. After that, the status window shows he has completed clearing one of the 3 dungeons. Next is the village in the woodlands, and the girl recognizes him as the guy who is the #1 trending topic on Hunter Kill's community website. They also remember his tracksuit and hairstyle, and they never thought they would see him in the flesh. On the other side, at the Ares Guild, Korea branch, basement, Chung, the management department head of the Korea branch, asks Mr. Kang what brings the head of human resources down there to the basement. He replies him that Mr. Hyuk said he would inform him privately, and he was briefed but didn't get all the details. He is also surprised to see Hyunwoo's grade stats, and it is hard to believe that these are the status of a hunter who recently escaped the tower. Mr. Kang says that the results are 100% accurate, and they also ran some tests to get an idea of his abilities. Ching exclaims he is more like a monster than a human. Mr. Kang wants him to take care of this guy, and asks him just to rough him up a bit, but also assures him that there will not be any problem if he does whatever he wants. Ching smiles and asks him if he is sure he doesn't mean what he wants. And from what he has heard, this kid went into one of their dungeons and tore it up from the inside. Unfortunately, the hunters guarding the dungeon at the time were also taken down by him. Ching smiles and says it must have been humiliating and asks him not to worry because if he is indeed a strong hunter, then it will be hard to leave it by just roughing him up. He exclaims that it is better to be discreet anyway, so they won't disturb their branch manager because they are sure that he has his hands full with the expansion in China. Mr. Kang asks him if he has also deployed his personnel there, and he replies it happened due to the Mighty Ruler Guild. Mighty Ruler is China's newly formed guild, and it was founded 2 years ago. Pado gained control over half of the dungeons in China. The guild leader behind Pado's success has only been out of the tower for 4 years, and all the high-ranking members are famous for their monstrous abilities as well. The more surprising thing is that the identity of Pado's leader, 5th out of all S-grade hunters in the global ranking, remains a mystery to the rest of the world. However, Chin asks Mr. Kang not to worry about Hyunwoo because they are too busy dealing with Pado, so they don't have the time to fool around. He will handpick a specialist to clean up this boy. On the other side, Hyunwoo is at Soyeok's home and is using his cell phone for the first time. He is surprised by its features and also clicks his photo to check its resolution. He asks him if they can play games on the phone, and Soyeok thinks he gave him the phone so they can stay in touch, but he hasn't put it down for 3 hours. He starts a conversation with him and reveals that the village in the woodland belongs to his own guild, the Soul Guild. There is no boss monster in the dungeon at the moment, but Hyunwoo is not listening to him but is playing games on his cell phone. He then suddenly remembers what Soyeok says and asks him why there is no boss in the dungeon, and he tells him that it was defeated a few weeks ago. He also tells him that it works differently from the tutorial tower, where the monsters take about a day to regenerate. While dungeons in the real world have different rules, common monsters keep reappearing no matter how many times they defeat them. However, once a boss is defeated, it takes some time to regenerate, and it is different with each dungeon. It takes around a month for the village in the woodland. Hyonu is shocked that he has to wait an entire month, and Seoyeok tells him that the boss there was defeated about 4 weeks ago, and it should regenerate in about 2 to 3 days. Hyonu asks him what about the swamp in view, and he tells him that Ares controls that dungeon. However, if they look around, they might find some information on it, and he is annoyed because they have to do so much work for one stupid monster. Seoyeok asks him when they are going to register for a grade at the Hunters Association, and he carelessly asks him if he really has to do this. He states that it will be good for him, and they will need a registered grade to receive perks like association-sponsored facilities and money. Surprisingly, he asks him if he really can get money, and Seoyeok tells him that he needs to provide actual results every 2 to 3 months. Moreover, for a B grade, he will earn 130,000 won, and 500,000 won for an A grade. And there is a jump between A and S. He also tells him about his income, which is around 7 million won a month, and he asks him to go and register right now. The next morning, they reach the Korea Hunters Association's Ability Measuring Center, and a man at the reception asks him if he has come there for the registration. When he tells his name, the man asks him if he is the one who escaped after 12 years, and he thinks this is the boy everyone is talking about, and even today, the visitors have been asking about him. Everyone asked him if Hyonu had come there for the registration, and the man thought he acted like such a big shot just because his test score was pretty good. After some time, he exclaims that he has finished checking all his data and asks him to hold the eye of the truth. His grade status will be shown on the hologram next to him, and his hunter grade will be decided. Hyonu holds the eye and thinks it may appear B grade for him, and considering the hype, it may be B+. But soon, he is shocked to see the results, and Hyonu asks him if it is done or not, and the man shouts at him, saying this doesn't make any sense, because his stats show no limits, and soon, the news spread all over social media that the advanced player Hyonu Kim has no limits. Apart from the magic, all of his stats are a grade, and after that, a staff member screamed his head off, and word spread fast. The people think there is no one like that in the entire world, and he is in pole position for the top spot in the hunter rankings. Meanwhile, Hyonu is watching all this on his cell phone and is impressed that these days, it doesn't take long for people to know what is going on. Seoyeok also says everyone is talking about him right now because he has caused the scene inside the Ares-controlled dungeon, and he bets all sorts of people are keeping tabs on him. He knows Hyonu won't really care, but he informs him that Ares has already gathered intel on him. They will also hear about the grading results today, and they won't just sit back after he invaded their territory. He advises him to be careful from now on, but he doesn't listen to him and is concentrating on his cell phone. And Seoyeok asks him if he is listening to him, but suddenly he starts laughing loudly, and Seoyeok asks him what is so funny there, and he shows him a guy on the mobile screen. He is in the game loading screen and appears whenever he moves between levels. According to him, he has ridiculous poses with all of his cheap poses and laughs at him, saying these hunters have way too much time. Seoyeok gets angry and reveals that the hunter on the screen is him, and there is an awkward silence in the car after this. After a while, he calls and asks him if he has nothing to do, and Seoyeok asks him what he is talking about. He remembers Seokwon and Seoyeon, who always seem so busy, but he seems to have so much free time. Seoyeok exclaims he is also a guild leader and is busy, of course, and even today, he has taken some time off, so he could help him out, and Hyonu seems impressed by him. On the other side, in Ares' basement, on the 5th floor, at the management head's office, the manager is shocked to see Hyonu's profile and stats, and Chung exclaims he is a monster and this is why the branch manager wants him to take care of him. He asks Mr. Kang why he looks so serious and asks him not to worry because dealing with him won't be an issue. He has called Chungang Sin, and Mr. Kang asks him if he is talking about the hunter who is about to be S grade in China and will be perfect handling Hyonu. Mr. Kang seems happy to hear this. On the other side, Hyoni and Seoyeok enter the village dungeon, and he asks him why no one is trying to stop them from getting in, and he tells him that their guild owns the dungeon. It is almost time for the boss to regenerate, and Hyonu looks pretty excited to enter there. Meanwhile, someone is watching them from behind and laughing at them while hiding behind a tree. Meanwhile, there is another accompanying them, and Hyonu asks him about who he is, and he introduces himself as Gammon Back. Seoyeok tells him that he's in support of gathering materials because the materials dropped by the boss there can be sold for money. And Hyonu is shocked to hear they went from 20 to 35 million won in the current market. He asks him why they need materials, and he replies that someone who dresses like him wouldn't understand this. In fact, the materials are used to make weapons and armor, and Gammon asks him if he can get a video of this. Hyonu asks him what he will do with that video, and he tells him about the process of earning money from the number of views or revenue. Hyonu agrees and asks him to split it 80 by 20, and Gammon has to agree with this. They start walking in the woods, and after some time, Suoyok gives him a paper, and he asks him what that is. He tells him that once he enters the village in the woodlands, it becomes a maze, and this is the map so that they don't run around in circles. Hyonu reads the map carefully and leaves after discarding the papers. Suoyok is shocked by his action and asks him why he did this, but he goes on without replying. A few moments later, they reach out in front of a large old tree, and he turns back and asks Gammon to make sure he ultimately gets the video. He then stands in a fighting pose and waits for the boss to appear there while Gammon is holding his mobile phone to picture him. After a while, he punches the tree forcefully. There is a large amount of mana spread everywhere, and they are also shocked to see it. The tree falls to